Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. So in previous videos we have covered non-aqueous solutions, and that was very important topic. Now we are going to start main group elements, right? So first I want to tell about a general introduction of the periodicity of the elements in the periodic table, right? So we will not talk about this very basic concepts like how ionization potential varies and electronegativity varies. We all know about them, right? But we will take, as always, very important topics. So first thing is pattern of ionization energy in p block elements. In case of s block elements, when you will go down the group, ionization potential decreases. Obviously ionization potential means we want to remove outermost electron, so it is easier when we are going down the group, right? And that pattern is smooth in case of s block elements, but this is not so for the p block elements. For example, the boron family. So when you will move from boron to aluminium, suppose the ionization potential for boron is 800 kilojoule per mole. Why I am telling you this value? Because sometimes you may have questions about the values, right? They can ask you questions like give the approximate difference between the ionization potentials of two elements, right? They will give you very basic elements and they can ask you the almost approximate the difference between these two, right? So you should have all idea about that. So in case of boron family, it starts with boron 800 kilojoule per mole. Then for aluminium, it decreases 577.4 kilojoule per mole. So ionization potential decreases because there is sudden increase in the size of aluminium, and the nucleus of aluminium is not doesn't have so much control for the on the outermost electron, so we can easily remove that electron, right? Then next one is gallium, and for gallium it has 579 kilojoule per mole. Means when we go from boron to aluminium, it decreases, then again increases, right? And this is due to the addition of d orbitals in gallium, and we know that d orbitals are not so much good for the shielding effect, right? So they will not effective for the shielding. And second factor is that the size is increased, so these two factors control each other, and the value is almost same for aluminium and gallium. Then next we have indium. So again the value decreases when we move from gallium to indium. It has 558 kilojoule per mole. So again the size increases, and the increase is sudden, large, right? And that is why the control of nucleus to the outermost electron decreases. Then next we have thallium. So again it will increase, and this time we have value 589, and this increase is due to the addition of electrons in f orbitals, and f electrons are very poor, and the shielding due to f electrons is much poor than the d electrons, right? So it will not be that easy to remove outermost electron in case of thallium, right? Then we have carbon family. So in case of carbon family, again the same things will be applied, but the pattern is different. We have highest value for carbon, then it decreases for silicon, germanium, tin, and it increases for lead. So the value starts from 1086 and then it decreases. It has 786, then we have 760, 708, and it is 715. So you should have approximate idea about these values. Next topic is evidences which are against of inert pair effect. So first we should know that what is inert pair effect, then we can move to what are the factors which are against the inert pair effect. So first thing is that in case of, suppose we are taking here carbon family. So in case of carbon and silicon, its oxidation, more important oxidation number is +4. We know that the outermost configuration of carbon family is ns2np2, right? So we can remove these two electrons, or we can remove only p electrons. If we are removing only p electrons, it will show +2 oxidation state, and if we are removing these 4 electrons, then it will show 4+4 oxidation state. So for carbon and silicon, +4 oxidation state is more important. Then comes heavier elements. Suppose we are taking here tin and lead, the last two elements. They will preferentially shows +2 oxidation state. Their +2 oxidation state is more important than +4. SnCl2 is more stable than SnCl4. So why this is so? It's mean that it's ns2 electron. S2 electron is not, S2 orbital is not participating in the bonding, right? Means it will become inert. It is not participating, it is called as inert, and that is why this effect is called as inert pair effect. Similarly, in case of nitrogen family, the heavier elements, the bismuth and all that, they will not show higher oxidation state due to this inert pair effect. But if you want to explain it by some logic, it fails. For example, as we will take SnCl2. So the structure of SnCl2 is bent. It has sp2 hybridization. It means its s orbital is participating in the bonding. If its s orbital is not participating in the bonding, then it should have 90-degree bond angle. 90-degree bond angle means only p orbitals are participating. If only p orbitals, according to inert pair effect, these p orbitals are participating. So if its p orbitals are only participating, then it should have bond angle only 90-degree. But this SnCl2 has bent structure. It has sp2 hybridization. It means its s orbitals are participating in the bonding. Second thing is, we have studied about the ionization potential, right? So we said that the outermost, as we are going down the group, ionization potential decreases, right? Means it is easier to remove outermost electron. So if we can remove s as well as p electrons for the smaller elements which have higher ionization potential, then why it is not feasible to remove s electrons and p electrons for heavier elements which have lower ionization potential? Means if suppose I am taking here carbon, and for carbon, if I can, suppose I am taking a journal structure valence shell, which is not true, but this is for explanation only. So if I can remove this s electron as well as this p electron for carbon, right? This is small in size and its nucleus has much greater hold for these electrons. If we can remove these two type of electrons in case of carbon, why it is not possible for lead, which is much larger than carbon, and we can remove only its p electrons, not s electrons? Why this is so? It means there is some other things which are taking place here, not only this inert pair effect. Actually, the size of these elements, heavier elements, is much higher, right? And because of their bigger size, they cannot overlap properly, and because of their less overlapping, they show lower oxidation states. So now if they are asking you a question related to this, the structure of SnCl2 and the bent structure, which rules is disobeyed by this structure, you can say that it is the inert pair effect. Then next topic is bonding in SiO2. So in case of carbon dioxide, we are comparing here two oxides, and these two oxides belong to same group. This is carbon dioxide and it forms carbon, this type of structure. But the structure of SiO2 is different. It has 3D structure and bonded by sigma bonds. We will go in the detail of the structures of SiO2 and all that in carbon family when we will discuss about that. This is only a journal introduction type thing. So in case of SiO2, it has 3D structure with sigma bonds, right? So why this is happening, that in the same group, when we are going down the group, the tendency to form pi bonds decreases for the elements. So in case of carbon, the orbitals can overlap. Pi bond is formed by the sideways overlapping. We all know about this. So this is feasible for carbon, but when we are talking about this silicon, which is heavier in size, so it is not feasible for these orbitals to overlap with each other, right? And because of their poor sideways overlapping, because of their bigger size, they cannot overlap properly, and they will show only formation of sigma bonds, which is due to head to head overlapping. This bond SiO bond, or we can take here nitrogen or halogen, these type of bond are not purely sigma bond. Actually, they have some double bond character due to the back bonding. Back bonding, we will discuss about back bonding a little bit later, and we will take the detail of back bonding for particular type of elements or particular type of group when we will discuss about that group, right? Then we have next, this is a question, and using this question we will try to understand a very important concept. So the question is, bond association energy of trialkyl phosphine oxide is greater than trialkyl amine oxide. Why this is so? So suppose I have, this is the structure for trialkyl phosphine oxide, and this is for, suppose, for trialkyl amine oxide. So we can explain this thing by p pi d pi back bonding. Means oxygen having lone pair of electron in its p orbital, right? And this phosphorus has empty d orbitals. So when this phosphorus is giving its electron to oxygen to form a dative bond, this oxygen containing lone pair of electron will give its electron back to the d orbitals of phosphorus. This is called your p pi d pi back bonding, and due to this back bonding, this bond strength is much greater. While in case of nitrogen, there is no d orbital, so this type of bonding is not possible, so bond strength is much weaker. Suppose I will attach electron withdrawing group here. If I will attach strong electron withdrawing groups here, then bond strength will increase. Why it will increase? Because these groups will pull electron density towards them from phosphorus, and this phosphorus will become more electropositive, right? And due to increase in its electropositive nature, these electrons will readily go in the d orbitals of phosphorus, and it will cause increase in the bond strength. So they can give you question related to this, right? P pi d pi back bonding, and they can ask you about bond strength, or they can modify this question to the frequency, vibrational frequency, and you know that vibrational frequency is directly related to your bond strength. Or they can relate this one with bond length, as we have discussed in on the topic of organometallic chemistry about CO bond strength, right? Same thing can be applied here. Next, they can ask you about the dipole moment order. Means they can ask you that it will have higher dipole moment or it will have higher dipole moment. So when, suppose is in the starting, this phosphorus, when it is giving electrons to oxygen, it will have slightly positive charge, and this oxygen have, suppose, negative charge. Now this oxygen will give its electron to this phosphorus in d orbitals, and its positive charge will decrease, right? So when positive charge will decrease and charge, then what will happen? Your dipole moment will decrease. And in this case, or you can relate it with bond strength. If bond strength increase, bond length will decrease, and bond length decrease, dipole moment will decrease. And in this case, this nitrogen has positive charge, oxygen has negative charge, and there is no back bonding, so it will have higher dipole moment. Next question is again on p pi d pi back bonding. So the question is this, trimethylamine is more basic than triethylamine. Why this is so? So the basic character is due to the lone pair of electrons present on nitrogen. right? The basic nature is due to these lone pair of electrons. But in case of methyl, there is no d orbital, right? So when it will form a bond with this nitrogen, it cannot give its electron to the d orbital of methyl or d orbitals of carbon. It is not possible in this case. While in case of silicon, it has d orbitals. So this nitrogen can give its electron to the d orbital of silicon. So it is not easier, it is not available to be given other species, right? So its basic character will decrease because its lone pair of electron present on nitrogen is not available, easily available. That is why its basic character will decrease. Same thing is here, same concept will be followed here. This reaction shows that these two will form a adduct, but if I am taking this disillyl oxide, then with BF3 it will not form adduct. Why? Because this adduct is due to the donation of the electron present on oxygen to BF3, which is electron deficit, right, due to this dative bond. But in case of silicon, this silicon will have d orbital, so it will take electrons of oxygen through back bonding, p pi d pi back bonding, right, and not available to give this BF3, right? That is why it will not form any adduct. Next question is, which will easily undergo hydrolysis in presence of OH? So this topic is related to your electronegativity, because in this case we have silicon, germanium and tin, and all of them have d orbitals, right? So we cannot relate it with the d orbitals, because in case of carbon halides and your phosphorus halide, we can relate the hydrolysis with the availability of d orbital. Means if you have CCl4 and PCl5 and we want to do hydrolysis of these two, for this it is possible, but not possible for carbon tetrachloride, because it doesn't have any d orbital and it is not available to take electrons from the water molecule, right? So it will not show hydrolysis. But this thing cannot be applied here. We have to consider about the electronegativity. So as we have discussed in the starting, that in case of S block elements, the pattern, the movement, trend of ionization potential is same, means it will decrease down the group. But in case of p orbitals, it is not so. Same thing, that in case of S block elements, electronegativity decreases down the group, but in case of p block elements, this is not so. For example, carbon has electronegativity 2.5, silicon has 1.9, germanium has 2, and for tin it is 1.96, right? So when they will form bond with this hydride, which has hydrogen has electronegativity 2.1. So this bond is slightly polar in nature due to the difference in electronegativity. While in case of germanium and tin, this bond is almost non-polar in nature. So this silicon will have slightly positive charge when it will form bond with this hydrogen, right? And due to this positive character, it can easily attract OH minus towards it. While these two bonds are, the bonds with germanium and tin is almost non-polar, and it will not efficiently attract OH minus towards it. This attraction is much greater in case of SiH4. So you can say that SiH4 will go easily, will easily undergo hydrolysis with OH minus, right? So now one more thing is, if you want to remember the pattern of electronegativity for group 13 and group 14 element, you can remember it by alternation pattern. Alternation pattern means for other groups 15, 16, 17, the electronegativity will decrease down the group, similar to the S block elements, but in case of 13 and 14 group, this will show alternation pattern. Alternation pattern means first it is higher for carbon, then it will decrease for silicon, then it increase for germanium, then decrease for silicon, right? Then we have some questions from GATE and NET. So these all questions are very basic type question, you can easily do these all, right? So I have not taken all questions from this topic from NET and GATE, because those questions were very basic type questions. Means what will be the pattern of ionization energy, what will be the pattern of ionic radii for the cationic or anionic elements. So you can easily identify that ionic radii will be greater for the anions and lesser for the cations. So that type of question I have not included. First we will take question from GATE 2010, which does not exist due to inert pair effect. So we know that inert pair effect means for p group elements, the elements with heavier elements will not show higher oxidation state. So these all belongs to nitrogen family, and out of all these, bismuth is the heaviest. So it cannot form BiCl5, right? So correct option will be BiCl5. It will not show oxidation state plus 5. It will show plus 3. It will form BiCl3. Correct order of decreasing size. So for anions, the size will be larger. Remember this point only, right? So out of these all, sulfide is S2 minus should have highest size. So option B can be correct only where only S2 minus has highest size. Then Cl minus, K plus, calcium plus 2 charge means it will have much smaller size than plus 1 charge. Then first ionization potential of magnesium, aluminium, phosphorus and sulfur. So these all belongs to different groups but the same period. So we can think like that when we are moving from left to right in the period, ionization potential will increase. We have this concept that ionization potential should increase when we will move from left to right. But when you are thinking about this, then please try to write down the electronic configurations of the elements also, because if you will follow the simple concept, your answer will be wrong, because in this case you have to check the half filled, fully filled p orbitals. For magnesium, configuration is 3s2. For aluminium, it is 3s2 3p1. For phosphorus, it is 3s2 3p3, and for sulfur it is 3s2 3p4. And you will also remember that ionization potential increases when you will moving left to right. So you have to compare these two and these two, right? So out of magnesium, which is present on the left hand side, so it should have lowest ionization potential than aluminium. But in case of aluminium, the outermost electron is present in the p orbital, which is alone in this orbital, while this one is fully filled s orbital. So removal is much difficult for magnesium than aluminium. So lowest should be for aluminium, then magnesium. Then out of phosphorus and sulfur, this phosphorus has fully half filled p orbital, while this doesn't have, right? So according to the concept, this should have highest ionization potential because it is present on the right hand side, but because it has half filled p orbital, it will have highest ionization potential. So answer will be C. Next question is from NET 2012. Electronegativity difference is the highest for the pair. So these cations are all belongs to S block elements, right? They all are S block element, and alkali metals, lithium, sodium, potassium, right? These three will be discussed, and then we have here fluorine and chlorine. So electronegativity decreases down the group. So it should have lowest electronegativity, lowest for it, and it increases from left to right and decreases down the group. It should have highest. So if we have a group of potassium and fluorine, it will have highest difference, means option number B will be correct. Then next question is strength of p pi d pi bonding in EO follows the order where E can be your silicon, phosphorus, sulfur and chlorine, right? So strength of p pi d pi back bonding we have discussed that suppose I am taking here and it is giving electrons to oxygen by a dative bond. Now this oxygen will give its electron to the d orbital of E by back bonding. So if the electronegativity of this E is higher, then it can easily pull electrons towards it. And when this back bonding increases, strength will increase. So out of all these, highest electronegativity is for chlorine. So this order D option will be correct. Means CO, SO, PO, then SiO. Option number D will be your correct answer. So this is all about this video. I have taken all the important topics about the trains of elements in the periodic table, right? I have not taken the very basic type of topics like ionization potential, size. You all know about that, right? Next we will start S block elements very soon, and then we will cover P block elements before gate examination, right? So thank you so much for watching, and if you like my videos, please share my videos with your friends. Thanks again.